What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript. We're looking at Thursday night football between the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers, and it's looking like another potential shootout, and I'll get into it right after this. What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript. Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heatseeker Sports, and we're looking at the San Francisco 49ers versus the Los Angeles Rams in this one, and we got a 49.5-point total with the San Francisco as 2.5-point favorites in this one. It's kind of surprising to me the way that the Rams have been surging and the way that the 49ers have just been banged up on their defense, but we got a 2.5 favorite in San Francisco. So it's going to be an interesting game, and it's going to be probably a high-scoring game. I think that the total sounds pretty accurate. I think that it could even go higher than that total, depending on how this game plays out. We got two potentially high-powered offenses in this one. San Francisco, when they play to the best of their ability, can obviously put up points against anyone. And the Rams have been vulnerable as a defense. And then on top of that, we got San Francisco's vulnerable injured defense. And they're still missing a couple potential pieces. We're waiting on word on Bosa, for example. And, it's just a bad scene for that San Francisco defense with the injuries they've been dealing with this season. Before I get into a breakdown and building some lineups, make sure to hit that like button. I'm looking for 30 likes to put out a shorter video, or to at least leave my favorite picks in the comment section closer to lock. I'm recording this on Thursday at the ass crack of dawn, so I don't have all the information that I normally work with as far as ownership and stuff like that. So I'll have a better idea of who I like as captain options better when we get closer to game time. But it's also good to be able to build these lineups going blind with ownership, so that way I'm not getting any bias in who I like as my top captains and everything like that, trying to avoid higher ownership. So let's dig into it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. I'm looking to get to 1,400 subscribers. I only need a little bit less than 100 at this point. So if you guys can help me get to 1,400 subscribers, that'd be great. It helps me out a lot, and it helps me to get this show bigger as far as potential partnerships and stuff like that. So I appreciate the subscribes on this. And when you subscribe too, you can sign up for the alerts to get future videos and future shorts that I put out. You keep an eye on the short feed, by the way, because I got an underdog short on there. Should be on there by the time this show gets posted. That's going to be a good one to help us get 25 times our money this week. So let's dig into this slate. Looking at Puka Nacua, Nacua's been on a tear since he got back from his injury. You can see it here in his nut. He got back in week 8, and he's only had one game that was a dud, and that was the game where he ended up getting ejected. If you watch this show, we had him in that game, and it was one of those weeks where it was going to be a huge week, and we had Puka Nacua going into the afternoon. It was looking like it was going to be a monster week, and then Nacua gets ejected in like the first few plays of the game. That's pretty much how the season has been going with some of these picks, where getting the game scripts right on a lot of these matchups, but sometimes just weird stuff has been happening with some of these players. But let's try to change that tonight. Puka Nacua, he's been on fire. San Francisco, though, has been pretty good against wide receiver ones. We got Charvarius Ward, who's likely to be on Nacua, I would guess, and that's going to leave San Francisco more susceptible for wide receiver 2. But I think that Puka has also done well versus some of these tough defenses. Had 44.8 DraftKings points against Buffalo last week. He had 23.7 against Philly. So he's done well against difficult matchups already. So you can't really rule out Puka Nacua. He's just been on a tear this year. With Kyren Williams, the 49ers are giving up the second most touchdowns to the running back position this season. And ever since they got back, the Rams got back Avila, I believe, on the offensive line. They've been much better in the run game. If you remember early in the season, there was a lot of criticism of Kyren not getting a lot of efficiency as a running back. A lot of that was due to their banged up offensive line. There's still a few guys questionable, and we're at the left tackle, got a depth issue, but overall, this is probably the healthiest that the offensive line has been all season, and that's going to give Kyren Williams some good opportunity to kind of start coming alive here at the end of the season. So I like Kyren Williams a lot tonight. I think he gets a touchdown, honestly. So he's going to be in good shape tonight. Cooper Kupp, the guy that would benefit if the 49ers continue their strength against wide receiver one, and that'd be good for us. He's a cheaper option. And, if you look at his numbers, when you compare him to Puka Nacua, he looks like he's underperforming, but really, like 20 DraftKings points in 3 of the last 4, and then he had a 24-point game, 35-point game. Really, he's gone over 15 in every game except for like 2 games this season where he dudded it out. But I would imagine in a game where I'm expecting a shootout, for Cooper Kupp to be able to have one of his higher scoring games this week. It's going to make Cooper Kupp an interesting play for sure this week. And especially if a lot of the ownership goes towards Nacua, that's going to leave us with a cheaper Cooper Kupp at a discount in ownership as well. So Brock Purdy is having like a decent season this year. He's had a bunch of weeks over 26. He's come alive more recently. We've seen he had that dud week with 3 points. I believe that was in the snow. Purdy has a history of playing poorly when his condensation, like either rain or snow. But if you look at week 7 on, he's only had 2 weeks under 20 DraftKings points. Actually, if you look at week 6 on, he's only had 2 points, 2 weeks under that. Let's see, about 20 DraftKings points. He had that 19.36, but we can round that up to 20. But so he's been pretty good this year, and he's got a matchup where the running backs on San Francisco's side are banged up, and I expect San Francisco to be passing pretty heavily in this one. Matthew Stafford, he has not done well against the Rams throughout against the 49ers throughout his time with the Rams. And, I expect Kyren Williams to be, pretty heavily used in this one. But, Matthew Stafford is a guy that's capable of overcoming matchup difficulties. He had 12.8 DraftKings points in that week 3 matchup, but I believe he was out without some of his major weapons in that one. So, got to give him a pass on that one. Let's go and look at Matthew Stafford's history against the 49ers. I'm going to go over to Pro Football Reference. And check out his career stats versus the 49ers. So if we're looking at his most recent games, he had that big playoff game in 2021, 337 yards and 2 touchdowns. Prior to that, or in addition to that, like earlier this year, only 221 yards and a touchdown. He did have a 300-yard game in 2023 with 1 touchdown. Prior to that, 187 yards and a touchdown, 254 yards and a touchdown, 238 and 3 touchdowns. And you get the idea. So he's had a couple good games mixed in there. So definitely capable of putting up a big game against San Francisco, and especially in a primetime game with a high total like that. And they're supposedly underdogs in this one. I don't know why they're underdogs. I can see the Rams winning this one. Obviously, they're playing in San Francisco, so that's going to contribute to it. But San Francisco's had struggles this year. Meanwhile, the Rams are surging. So I kind of think that the Rams are going to win this one. So I kind of like the money line on the Rams if you're doing parlays. Jennings has been on fire this year. He's been on a tear basically since the Super Bowl, since he just absolutely had a monster game during the Super Bowl. And when he's gotten his opportunities this year with players banged up, like Ayuk's been out for basically the whole season, which has put Jauan Jennings, that's the top receiver. Like Brock Purdy loves to throw to him. We've seen a 49.5-point game, a 25-point game, a 28-point game, a couple, a few double-digit games mixed in there too. He's had some duds as well. So that's pretty much what you expect from San Francisco receivers in general. But last week, 8 targets, 7 receptions, 90 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The big game that he actually had was against the Rams earlier this season. He had 49.5 DraftKings points against them, 12 targets, 11 receptions, and 3 touchdowns. So Jennings is a guy that can go off any game, but he's coming off of a big game, and we might see some of that ownership leaning towards him. And meanwhile, you got Deebo Samuel, who's been the opposite. Like he has not had. He's only had 2 games over 20 DraftKings points, and he's been on a major slump recently. But he's been on a squeaky wheel as well. So don't be surprised if you see some of the work coming to Deebo this week. And he's got a history against the Rams. Let's take a look at some of his past games against the Rams. Obviously, being in the same division, they face each other often. So we're going to take a look at Deebo's game logs versus the Rams. And you can see that playoff game we mentioned earlier, 7 targets, 4 receptions, 72 yards, and a touchdown. Dudded out in one of his 2023 games. 9 targets, 6 receptions, 63 yards, and it looks like he got a rushing touchdown in that one. 6 receptions, 115 yards, and a touchdown. 4 receptions, 95 yards. 5 receptions, 70 yards, and a touchdown. 11 receptions for 133 yards. 6 receptions, 66 yards, and a touchdown. You get the picture. So Deebo has had some success against the Rams, and this would be a perfect game for him to break out of that slump, especially with a lot of the attention going to Jauan Jennings. If we're looking at Matthew Stafford, Stafford actually just covered him. Guerendo is who I skipped over. Guerendo, questionable to play. So we're keeping an eye on the injury status for Isaac Guerendo. It's going to be a big deal, because if Guerendo is out, then we're going to get what's his face? We're going to get Taylor as our RB1 basically for San Francisco, which is going to put me even more on that passing game. They've priced Taylor up, so we're not getting a discount on him really, as he is priced only a little bit underneath. He's $1,000 cheaper than Guerendo. So, I don't like that price on Taylor. I'd love him at a discount, but we're not really getting that discount this week on him. So he might be an ownership play. If you notice that the ownership is way low on him, then that's going to be an opportunity to play him. But if it's high on him, just because he's the default running back, that would put me more on that passing game. If we're looking at George Kittle, Kittle has been a monster this year. Yeah, he's done really well. A bunch of weeks over 20 DraftKings points. Missed the last game against the Rams, and that was a game. He was just inactive for, but he's going to get a good opportunity. The Rams are giving up 12.8 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position, so it's kind of a middling matchup, but like some of the underlying stats that the Rams have been allowing, according to Rich Rebar, they're allowing a 74.4% catch rate. They're allowing a 7.6 yards per target rate and 4.4 percent touchdown rate, which is 18th in the league to tight end positions. So puts Kittle in a pretty decent matchup, and I would not be surprised to see him have a captain-worthy game in this one. So I think that Kittle is firmly in play this week, especially in a game where I'm expecting them to pass more. And he's cheap. Kittle is pretty cheap relative to like what his upside is, and some of these other players on the slate. He's only $8K. Deebo Samuel, I already mentioned, like him this week. If we skip down, Jimmy G is on the Rams now. I didn't realize that. We got Moody and we got Cardi. Either of these guys are going to be in play in a shootout. They're also playing in San Francisco, so it's not a dome, but should be decent weather, hopefully. On top of that, we got Cardi on the Rams. Cardi has not done too much, but he's had a game with 19 and a game with 15, so he's capable of putting up double-digit points. So I keep both those guys in the player pool this week. Ricky Pearsall, another guy we can keep in our player pool if we're expecting it to be more of a shootout. Pearsall, he's pretty expensive though at 4,800. Has not gotten a lot of targets recently, but he's had some games where he had decent targets. But at 4,800, that's a little bit pricey for like the usage that he's getting. Demarcus Robinson is another injury that we want to keep track of. We're waiting to see if he's going to play. He gets a ton of end zone targets, so he is in play. If he is playing, I'd take him over Ricky Pearsall. If he's not playing, that's going to vault Tutu Atwell, who has a like over 20% target share when he's on the field, when he's running routes, and he hasn't really done anything with it. But when Demarcus Robinson's out, he gets a uptick in his opportunity and his usage. So I would not be surprised at 2,600 if Tutu Atwell, if Demarcus Robinson is out, if Tutu Atwell ends up in the optimal lineups. See, beyond that, the defenses probably both in play, but like I would tend to lean more towards like guys like Robinson and Atwell over the defenses this week, depending on what your game script is, obviously. Keyshawn Vaughn is now on the 49ers. He's even priced up because of this uncertainty at the 49ers running back position. He's at 3,400. He played last week. He had 2 attempts, only 0.4 yards. Keyshawn Vaughn, I think he was on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at one point. Never panned out there. So he's kind of busted throughout his career, but he's in a good situation here in San Francisco. Blake Corum could be sneaky this week. If San Francisco, vulnerable to the running back position, allowing the second most running touchdowns to the running back position. He got 8 attempts in each of the last 2 weeks. Seems like he's getting a little bit ticked up in his usage, and that's a 3,200 salary on him. Blake Corum could be a sneaky play this week. He's a hyped up rookie. Um, was if he had found a different landing spot, we might be talking about him in a different light if he had opportunity this year. But just landed on a team where he wasn't going to get a lot of work with Kyren Williams being such a workhorse. So Blake Corum, he's in play, but keep him as a salary saver. Bonaconda is another guy that the 49ers picked up with all their running backs going to IR. Juszczyk could be a decent option at 2K with those injuries to the running backs there. Ty Johnson. Let's look at some of the usage of some of these Rams. This is going to be important with Demarcus Robinson's uncertainty. So let's take a look at some of the snap shares of these Rams. Demarcus Robinson, 47%. Kupp, 64%. Tyler Johnson had a 16% snap rate last game. Tutu Atwell had 35%. That's going to tick up if Robinson is out. Whittington is another guy. He had a 10% snap share. According to the ESPN depth chart, Whittington is the direct backup of Demarcus Robinson. Whittington is also questionable. So we're going to want to keep an eye on Whittington as well. If we get both those guys out, it's probably like Tyler Johnson might be that third receiver, or it might be somebody else. You're going to have to keep an eye out on the beat reporters to see how that situation shakes out. So keep an eye on that. That's going to be important because this is a game where we're going to be looking for some salary relief. So you're going to want to pay attention to what's going on with the wide receiver situation with Demarcus Robinson this week. All right, so that's enough for that. Let's build our lineups. Make sure to hit that like button. Give me the 30 likes. I put out my picks closer to lock when we have all the ownership information and everything. And make sure to subscribe to the channel. Subscribe so that you can get the alerts for when these shows come out. I don't have a set schedule on this. So especially on Sunday when there's a lot of chaos going on. I don't know when I'm going to be able to get my shows up. So you're going to want to sign up for the alerts, and you do that by subscribing to the channel. So let's start off with. We can start off with the chalkier, maybe direction. Let's go with Nacua. Let's see what the captain in Nacua would lead us. I probably would prefer Purdy, even though I got Nacua. So let's get Purdy in there, and let's get Williams in there, and then let's get Kittle in there. So I have at least one pass catcher with Purdy. So I'm looking at 29.5 per guy. As you can see, all these dudes are high priced. So this is where it's going to be difficult for us. Let's say that Robinson is out. Let's put Atwell in there. That's going to leave us with 3,300. That puts us in quorum range. Juszczyk. I'm not really sure what to make about Bonaconda, but you're going to want to keep an eye on beat reports to see, like how that workload might get split up. Tyler Johnson would also be interesting with, potentially Demarcus Robinson out. I like Juszczyk in this situation too. Juszczyk's always a good go-to guy when we're struggling for salary. If we take out Kittle and put in Samuel, that'll leave us in a little bit better spot. We got the Rams unlocked in that situation. Keyshawn Vaughn, I'm not buying into Keyshawn Vaughn. And then you have those cheaper options. All right, so let's build another one here. I'm going to go with a cheaper option. Keep an eye on Kittle and Samuel's projected captain ownership. Roto Grinders had Samuel in the double-digit range. I just don't see it with the way that he's been playing recently. But, it could play out that way. Look closer to game time what the projections are. But let's put Kittle in the captain. I think that he's going to be higher owned than Samuel in the captain, but let's put Kittle in there. Let's go with Williams. I'm going to go with Kupp. I like Kupp. And let's go with Purdy. See, now, if I wanted to go with Samuel here, that's going to leave me with 800, and that puts me in that Whittington range. And this is why Demarcus Robinson's status is going to be important, because if he's out, then that's going to bump up like opportunity for guys like Whittington. Got to make sure that Whittington's going to be active too, because he's questionable, and we just don't know like what his situation is going to be. You can see he hasn't had a target since week 5, and for a few weeks there, he was pretty high owned in DFS on the main slate with people projecting Whittington, to be getting a lot of targets with some of the injuries that they had to the receiver core earlier on in the season, but has not done anything since then, and really just has not made like any work out of the opportunities that he's had. So Whittington, though, at $800, if Demarcus Robinson is out, is going to be interesting this week. Honestly, like this dude Cephas, he's had some big weeks in the past. I don't know what his status is going to be, but if he ends up getting called up, he's probably on the practice squad because he hasn't had any games this year. But Cephas, I mean, that's digging way deep. But we're struggling for salary here. He's at 200, so keep Cephas in mind as well. But that would be a desperation play. Let's take Kittle out. Let's put Samuel in captain instead. See if that helps us out at all. I think either one of those guys could go off. That's going to leave us with at least 1,000 in salary. That puts us in Tyler Johnson. I'm much more comfortable using Johnson over Whittington. So that would be a good spot. I like that Deebo direction there. If we wanted to play completely off the board and play it like Demarcus Robinson is out, Tutu Atwell, I mentioned it earlier. He gets a monster bump in his target share when Demarcus Robinson is out. Let's put Tutu in the captain there. This is completely, off the board here. Let's put Williams. Let's just see what this gets us for like potential like studs that we can get in our lineup. Let's get Purdy in there. Let's get Kittle and let's get Samuel. So we can get that. Get Samuel in there in that situation. Grendo, if you wanted to put Grendo in there, just leaves us with options. If we wanted to swap out Kupp for Nacua, that would leave us with options still with Taylor if Garendo's are hurt or out, and like the kickers and stuff like that. So gives you a little bit of an idea of what you can play around with. If Demarcus Robinson is healthy, and we wanted to put him with all his end zone targets in the captain, we've seen it before where he goes off for a couple touchdowns in a game. We saw that back against Seattle when he had 2 touchdowns. We saw him have 2 touchdowns against Minnesota. He is a guy that gets targeted in the end zone. If we got him in the captain, let's say it's one of those outlier games where he has a monster week. We got Williams, we got Nacua, we got Purdy, we got Kittle in there. And that's going to leave us with options like Ricky Pearsall, the defenses, Blake Corum, guys like that. So, a few different directions you can go this week. I like Kittle or Samuel in the captain. That's still going to put us in rough shape as far as our salary. We're going to have to dumpster dive a little bit this week if you want to go in that direction and, just try to figure it out. Shootout, any one of these guys in a shootout could go off. That's why Demarcus Robinson or Tutu Atwell make interesting captains, because if this game shoots out and one of those guys, like Tutu Atwell, is capable of breaking off a 60-yard touchdown, if that happened to happen in a game like this, or if Demarcus Robinson had one of his 2 touchdown games, then, like those guys, you'll be sitting pretty with the rest of your lineup, because you'll be have a lot of studs in your lineup, and you'll have a high scoring captain on top of it. So keep that in mind when you're building your lineups. And all right, guys, hit that subscribe button. Get me to 1,400. I'm almost there. And make sure to hit the like button. Give me to 30 likes so we can put out my favorites later on. Check out the underdog video. I've got that posted in my shorts, and that'll give you a good idea of the guys that I like the most in this game anyways. I mean, you've just seen it with my lineup builds, but, things could change as we head closer to lock. So make sure to keep track of the comment section. All right, guys, I will talk to you later.